Greetings from a very rainy and cold Pietermaritzburg. Day 19, COVID-19, 14th of April 2020. Our first lockdown was going to be 21 days and we've now extended to 35. So if you look at it, we're just over the halfway mark. And that's pretty good. We've survived. We've managed. This morning's read, Chetan Bhagat, very interesting author. He started out wanting to open a cricket bat shop because cricket is such an important sport in India. And he landed up being an exceptionally good writer and a movie script writer. Now, what alarmed me with this book is there's parts of it where his wife talks about how much of time he spends on the internet. We never really realize just how much of time we spend on the internet. And she says to him that as time is going, he is spending much more time on the internet than he is with her and the children. Does it sound familiar to you? I think it should. The weather getting pretty cold the way it is, we tend to spend more time on the internet. And as you might have gathered so far, I also enjoy referring to LinkedIn in the morning. I have ex-colleagues who write some beautiful articles on a variety of topics. And this morning, I found one that was very, very interesting. Now, I'm not going to mention the name of the app, but this is just cause for concern, something for you to think about. It's written by somebody I've worked with a few years ago, and he was the head of the IT department at the organization that we both served, and he's now teacher development and school improvement head at another organization. It's Abdul Hamid Jachi, very, very learned in his field, and in my opinion, if he says something, it's worth listening to. So I owe the content of today to an ex-colleague of mine, and I'm really glad that our paths crossed because my knowledge has widened so much more by association and now by following the kinds of things that he does. His article mentions webcam hijacking. And he says it's still safe to use certain apps for schools, businesses, and governments. Now, in this cold weather, as I mentioned, we are spending a lot of time on the internet. And he does warn one in the beginning of the article. And typical in him, no mincing of his words, says it as it is. And he says this article may come across as alarmist in nature, but child safety is not something I believe anyone in education is ready to compromise on or take risk with. A policy of safe rather than sorry should always reign supreme. I agree with him totally. According to Reuters, there's a certain app which we all use. We've suddenly fallen in love with this app. It's like become our best friend. We're just so passionate about it. We say to people, without using the word, the name of the app, XYZ us. That's how hooked we are on this. And we're hooked on it because it's the simplest to use, the easiest to use, and comes with its dangers. During this crisis, this current crisis, according to Reuters, this app's user base has grown to over 200 million. Now, this is just during COVID-19. There's a dark secret that puts its millions of users at risk of exploitation, data breaches, IP theft, and of course, even threats to national security if you're using it on that level, which we know is being used. They use a lot of technical jargon, and it doesn't mean much to the average person, but it should. We are so vulnerable And this vulnerability was researched and found that it could leak computer login details as well as a list of connected devices on your network. Now, we all know about the leaking of details. This was pre-COVID. It's not just COVID related. But the situation has become much worse because of the number of people that are using this app and the difficulty to try and trace exactly where the source of hacking is. Now, I mentioned number of devices connected to your network. And you're probably thinking this is a bourgeois problem. It's not. If you're watching me on your iPad, your computer, your tablet, whatever it is, and you've got your mobile phone in charge, and you're wearing a smartphone, smartwatch, which is actually a smartphone, a mini computer, whatever, you've already got 3 devices. If you're able to stream me onto your major TV at home, there's your 4th device. And the list goes on. It's not just a bourgeois problem. It's everybody's problem. Now, a hacker will use those details to take control of your computer, steal your private data. But worse than that is spying on you using your webcam and your microphone. Now, that's enough to make the hair stand on end. It really is. It's not the first issue of vulnerability. It's not the first time that this vulnerability has happened. But schools and governments need to be aware. This is where uninvited people crash online. They crash classes, they crash meetings, and they start trolling with racism and even sharing pornographic information. This could have consequences, major consequences beyond just being annoying. It goes into your personal space. And sadly, children are and will always be considered the most vulnerable group. I understand that with COVID-19, there was the sudden rush, well, let's get onto the internet, let's do this, let's do that. But I appeal to organizations that are using the cheaper and the simpler apps to please rethink this. When you go back to your work, to your schools, to your businesses, please rethink what apps you're using and be very, very mindful of that. Because it's useless after the damage is done to say, well, I went for the easiest app. Are you going to say to the school or anywhere where your minor child is, after your child has had harm or after the child has been harmed, are you going to say to the parent, well, I went for the cheapest and the easiest app? That's not going to get you out scot-free in court. So please be mindful of this. Please place safety as the first thing. Safety of all users. We're living in the 4th industrial revolution. We have become victims of the internet. We've become addicted to it to some extent. Most definitely we have. The pandemic may be over in a few months, but the damage that the internet can cause now will not be over. It would last forever. Let's put our minds together. Let's stop just accepting this as the easiest tool. And let's be very cautious about how we use it. I'd like to end with a quotation from Bill Gates. And he says the internet is becoming the town square of the global village of tomorrow. This was mentioned a few years ago. We are in that global village. We are in that tomorrow already. I'm sorry to leave you on such a high note of concern and maybe fear, but this is reality. This is 4IR reality. I wish you well, and until we meet again, may God forever hold you in the palm of His hand.